even
Please
bigger
note, this
than
session is being recorded.
we're recording now for YouTube. It could become even bigger than the patient recruitment opportunity, although that's a huge opportunity right there. Whoever can pull that off is like consistently, that's a billion-dollar business line right there. But partnering with sites, partnering with investigators, having influence over investigators, these are things that the big CROs are trying to do and have done. There was, I think, WCG, one of the IRBs, have been buying at just about every company. They bought like 80 sites in Florida. Why? So that they can have influence over patient recruitment and they can have influence over these physicians who are the gatekeepers to where the patients are going to go. Because if no matter how good your study is, and no matter how many patients you convince to join your study, if they go ask their doctor and their doctor tells them no, that's a bad idea, they're not joining your study, right? Unless that study pays a lot of money, and even in those cases, they're not gonna join, or at least many of them won't join. I mean, you know, money has a funny way of making people do things that is against their best interests sometimes.
From what I've seen and heard, it sounds like physician education on what the protocols are and actually how to communicate these protocols to patients seems like a pretty big barrier. And I'm curious, have you seen anyone do this well? How have they done that?
So communicating what? Like communicating protocol?
Yeah, like for providers, I've heard at
Hmm,
least the providers are not familiar with protocols and they don't want to talk to their patients about something they're
right.
not totally confident in.
Well, it really
So
starts
we know
with
the government's not doing it. I mean, clinicaltrials.gov is supposed to be government's answer to this. Like, hey, we have this database, it's free, and nobody's using this. Okay, only other sites are using it to get new studies.
and
What were you saying, Chris?
it really starts with educating the physicians on research. Well, most are research naive, so you have to start there oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even understand the inner workings of research, let alone the given protocol.
The providers saying?
I'm sorry, say it again?
The providers you're saying?
Correct. So you'll have a physician, a general practitioner. They've never worked in research in any regard, other than maybe in college. So it's very limited, their understanding of research. So you have to start there. You have to educate them on research and what's involved and how it works. Because a lot of them have a negative attitude towards research to begin with.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, this whole, and maybe the coronavirus, in a post-coronavirus world, clinical research has actually gotten like a lot of good publicity. Matter of fact, I just probably just realized this now, but I think this is the best that the public has viewed clinical research ever in the history of clinical research. So maybe this stays, maybe it's less of an education problem going forward. Slightly less, right? But we are talking about people's health. We are talking about putting things into their body that they don't know what those things do. So there's always going to need like that kind of education for the physicians, and it's really the physicians. Because again, let's say you spend an hour with a patient on a Zoom meeting like this. You go for an hour educating them on the benefits of this study. They're convinced. Now they go tell their doctor that they're going to do a study, and their doctor says, "You're crazy to do this study. I don't want you in it." All right? What good does that do you now? You wasted an hour for what? Because this is how these things play out. So you need these physicians, you need these clinicians to be on board. And the best way is to get them involved as investigators, teach them, hey, did you know you can start your own clinic? It's not like, you don't have to do a lot different than what you're doing now with your existing clinic. You just add research to it. Chris and I do this every day. We have this conversation with sites across the country literally every day. So that's patient recruitment in a nutshell. That's the problem. Monica, patient recruitment expert. Can you talk a little bit about this? Hello? Oh, no, you're mute. You're mute. She has a lot to say, trust me.
Yeah, so about what we're going to be doing after this pandemic or during?
No, like just patient recruitment in general. You know, if you convince the patient, it's not enough. You know, you got to convince their clinician. And those are the ones that it's tough to get involved with because they think you're going to
Well,
steal their patients and they think all these kind of things.
I think if you do a proper pre-screening strategy, if you have a proper pre-screening process, then it's not going to be difficult to convince anybody. I mean, if the patient is there already, if the patient said already yes, and you have done the pre-screening, I mean, the clinician already will know that that patient pretty much qualifies for the study.
Right.
So that will be one thing. And then to do recruitment, I mean, there are so many techniques and so many opportunities, so many options to do depending on the target that you have, depending on the study, depending on the type of people that you're looking. I mean, you can. There is endless options to do this. Like, for example, going to facilities that have this type of patients, or meetups, support groups. Even if you want to do it online, you can start. If you, for example, if your site specialize, I don't know, in mental health, you can start looking on Facebook for the groups that target the type of patients that you're looking for. Or if your site has specialized in GI, you can do exactly the same, and then also the associations, or the associations for this type of conditions. They have events going on all the time, so you can assist or ask them if you can assist to them. You can offer some type of, gifts, or some type of donations for these associations. Like we did, I believe it was over Christmas, with the NAMI Association. We went to the Christmas party and we made a donation. And just because you're doing it, people, I mean, they are not going to say no when you're donating something for them that is that is something that they need.
And it's a
So there,
grassroots approach. You know, that's the best way. That's the best thing we've seen work, and it's also the hardest thing to execute because it requires consistency. You can't just go once and that's it. You know, you have to get involved with these communities, not just these physicians, but like Monica said, good point. I mean, you know, these nonprofits that are out there, these community-based patient advocacy groups. You know, these are important people and stakeholders to go after when you're a research site or if you're a patient recruitment vendor. Like, you
yeah,
know, some of the patient recruitment vendors, since I started in 2005, even back in 2005, I think it was a Curian who hired like sales reps to go out to all these advocacy groups and nonprofits and support groups and recruit people. And also that would supplement their other strategies they did. There was no social media back then, but you know, radio ads, the daytime TV ads, newspaper ads, all that stuff. Those things have now evolved into Facebook ads, YouTube ads. They're still doing daytime TV, which still works. You just got to know how to negotiate the prices better because they think they're worth more than they are, and nobody's watching commercials
yeah.
anymore. But that's another topic.
And then also you can do also events in Facebook. I mean, I think you have to give to the community before you start getting back, because people needs to, you need to earn people trust, and even these organizations, or the meetup groups, or the support groups. Before you actually get something from them, you have to give them, and earn their trust.
That's right. Sherry, how's it going? Did you do the I for Pharma meeting?
I did not. I just got sidetracked with some things. I was networking with a potential site.
Ah, very good. Very good, Sherry.
Yeah.
Sherry's getting the business done. Congrats on
Yeah,
that.
this guy's actually got a pretty good network of sites. He's privately owned, but they have hospitalists, but they also bring in and have cardiology, general med, emergency med. So
That's
interesting.
super good. Yeah, I did I was on the I for Pharma meeting for like 10 minutes this morning, but there were just a bunch of pharma figureheads talking, you know how they do, like speaking in code almost. So it's like,
Yeah, like listening to a data manager
yeah, yeah.
or a data programmer.
Yeah, so I got off and just started doing some reading and things that are practical, things that could help me today, not just, hearing about ideas that they're working on. And I mean, not surprisingly, I think the topic was patient centricity, something about patient centricity in the future. But you know what? I looked at their agenda and they're going for like 3 days. So I'm gonna try to hop back in and out of this virtual conference and see what other nuggets I can get. It was interesting. You have to it's free. This virtual conference is free, but if you want to network, they have like a networking chat room. You have to pay. You have to pay to be in the networking.
Oh,
Which shows you
always a
that
catch.
the value of every conference is the networking, apparently. It's not the content.
And then we have it here with Dan and Chris for free.
Yeah, we do it free. We'll try to get Darshan on next week or this week to talk about things. I'll start bringing on experts like Dr. Hazen yesterday. I mean, there's no shortage of these people that want to come on and build their brand and also help other researchers in the process. So, yeah, we're happy to do this. Chris Sauber is thrilled.
Chris is a man after my own heart there with the peacock chair, the hanging peacock chair in the back.
You're
I
mute,
think he's
Chris.
on mute.
Yeah, I think he's on mute.
So the chair was purchased with a wife and daughter, and neither of them ever sit in it. So it worked out well.
That's nice. Who else is on? What do you guys have going on right now? We were just talking earlier about patient recruitment, and it's interesting now with coronavirus that clinical research is in the forefront of these headlines. So it'll be very interesting to see pre-coronavirus or before corona. So you know just like 2 months ago, 1 month ago, you had this learning curve for patients. Like, hey, what is a clinical trial? Like you had to explain you're not a guinea pig. There's even been organizations saying you're not a guinea pig. Like these are slogans some research companies have. I think after Corona, AC, so not BC, but AC, maybe we don't need to do that anymore. Maybe this is like ingrained in everyone's head. Okay, what's a clinical trial? Maybe people are actually curious and looked it up. I don't know. Has anyone looked at Google Analytics and seen, I think it's Google Trends. They'll show you what's the hottest search terms, and then you can go like as local as you want. I guarantee you, clinical research is up there. Like, and it's never been up there. I haven't looked. I guarantee clinical research has never been trending on Google Trends, and I bet you it is now. It's
Yeah,
gotta be at least gotta be top 25
I agree with
search.
you. And then imagine now the people that have coronavirus will be more prone or more keen to participate in the clinical trials than ever before. So I think this is kind of educating people of the importance of doing clinical trials because without it, there is no treatment. So
Yeah. I had the opportunity to hear Lance Armstrong's oncologist speak several years ago at ACRP. And it was profound when he was saying that the mortality rates in certain populations or indications, especially oncology, decrease with the participation in clinical research. There's better mortality rates, there's better quality of life. And it stood true more for pediatrics because parents were more, amenable to doing anything they could to save their children, and less so to go into clinical research for themselves. And I think that that's kind of now equalized a little bit. But it was interesting to hear the mortality rates and see the improvements over people who had participated or not participated in a clinical trial.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this will, let's see, where's this echo? Yeah, so maybe our jobs as research sites just became a little bit easier after this. Who knows? I still think patient recruitment, we're so off. Every year, the number of patients we need is way higher than the number of patients that are actually enrolled. So any bit of help, like from a branding perspective, from a overall awareness, I think is good for the industry. And I think everyone in this case will be happy, including patient recruitment vendors. I mean, their job will be easier too. And there's a lot of those patient recruitment vendors out there, and almost none of them are very good. But the status quo has been acceptable. The status quo has been, let's pay these guys. Hey, Adrian, please be safe if you're driving. Okay, we don't have you sign any waivers, before joining. So please be careful. But yeah, the status quo has always been, hey, I know this guy. He went to go start this company. He got a bunch of investors. So now it's a big company. They have resources. So let's just give him all of our contracts and hope for the best. And that's how a lot of these big patient recruitment vendors actually got started. It's not because they're actually any good. It's because they knew the right people and they got access to the right funding. Very few of these patient recruitment firms are actually any good. And I was just talking to one of the other members of Guru Nation earlier before we started this call. Usually they're the ones that are hyper focused on a specific therapeutic area, not just overall, hey, we recruit patients, because what does that even mean? So that's my 2 cents on patient recruitment. $1 billion opportunity for anybody who wants to put that out there, like educate more patients on research and just pick one niche, one therapeutic area, and figure out how to recruit patients like relatively well. You don't even have to be great, and you've got a business. I mean, you've got a great business.
So how did the ones that are not successful but have gotten into the industry, how do they stay afloat? Like how are they getting paid if they're not actually successful?
Oh, they're getting paid. Um,
Oh,
th-
it's not
they're
been success.
they're getting the business. They go to every conference. They sponsor they have the biggest booths.
Mm,
Um, they're always the sponsor at Bio, at DIA. They know the right people,
mm.
and then they do just enough to like move the needle.
Yeah,
But
marginally successful.
right, right. And as Chris and I know, and anyone who runs a site knows, when you're working with a central vendor, most of the leads you get from that vendor are no good. But you'll still get like an extra randomization or two if you follow up with all those leads. So they're not the most efficient, and they're certainly very costly. So they're not cost effective. But they keep getting repeat business because of the connections that they have, and they do move the needle. Not very much, but it's still better than anyone else who's doing anything. So it's wide open. It's wide open for anybody who wants to try. It's just very difficult. And get ready to go to a lot of conferences. Get ready to live on an airplane, just like you did in a before Corona world. Um, as soon as the economy opens back up and these conferences start up again, that's that's the name of the game for these guys. So let's see what happens now. Let's see what happens after Corona, because now a lot of these vendors, okay, I mean, they're still, how are they going to support now? Like, what are they going to do? They're going to sponsor another event. How are they going to keep getting business? Because if somebody comes in that does a decent job at a much lower price point, well, you'd be foolish not to use those guys for your study. And we're seeing this all the time. There's like 3 or 4 big players for patient recruitment, and then it's very fragmented. Underneath, you have all these small players that are trying to get there. Uh, so yeah, perfect business idea for anybody with ambitions to pull this off. I really think grassroots approach is the best approach.
Yeah, with all the time that we have right now, I mean, we can become very
Yeah, you know what?
creative.
Here's an idea. Here's an idea. Pick any patient advocacy group right now. Okay. Reach out to them and ask them, hey, do you have like a virtual conference? What are you doing? Like, do you have support groups for online for your patients? Maybe we can help you set that up, and now you're creating a business opportunity for yourself by helping them. I'm sure these big groups already have these plans, but what about some of these smaller patient advocacy groups? You know?
Yeah, even now that a lot of the PIs that are not in the front line working, they can actually do like a video specialized in that therapeutic area, and you can offer them those videos with some specific topic, so they are getting, information from a professional. That can
Not,
also be a good.
I don't, not only just the like disease sponsored indication websites or support groups, but the personalized ones. There's a lot out there, say diabetics, and you're looking for people to participate in a diabetes study in a local area. You could go on Facebook and there's sort of like, Montgomery County Diabetic Association, where it's a privately started Facebook group, and just put a blurb out there. Hey, we have this trial, or we're looking for patients with type 1 diabetes. Here's, the contact information. I got patients like that.
That's a great idea. I mean, Monica's been doing something similar with Facebook Live with the Craigslist, the local Craigslist groups on Facebook. Can you explain that strategy, Monica?
So what we do is we do events, and we just show it live, and we invite people to come to whatever we are doing the event. But in this case, like right now, you can do one of those parties online on Facebook, and people will join easily,
You can create a
and
Zoom,
explain. I
a
was
Zoom,
like,
use any meeting if you want, intermedia, any meeting, to have a virtual meetups with patients. Like, hey, let me
or
help you.
even in Facebook,
Facebook group, yeah.
yeah. So because I start noticing that this group, sometimes people start doing videos like live videos explaining whatever product they have, and sometimes it's like really stupid stuff, and then you see 350 people watching, and I'm just like, okay, if they are looking at this person that is showing like this kind of a stuff, why are not they are going to look for something for their health? So you can always offer something, and then at the end, like I was mentioning, maybe doing one of these parties with one of the doctors explaining something about the condition, or I don't know, maybe talking about nutrition for that specific condition or something, and then at the end or in between, talk about clinical trials as another option.
hmm And can you imagine what an organization who's relatively well resourced can pull off like during these times? I mean, let's say like a nonprofit, there's a lot of these community health clinics now that are like free clinics, nonprofits. You and I know somebody who does this, okay? I mean, they have resources. They have retired physicians volunteering time. Right now, they're probably seeing less patients at these free clinics. But these doctors, if they still want to help, I mean, what are they doing? Sitting at the house, they can get on a Zoom and start hosting like informational things with the patients. And then imagine if you had a research study that is either ongoing right now with a telehealth option, which Chris and I are working on, or about to start soon, like in June or July when the economy opens back up again, hopefully. I mean, clinics will be the first thing to open up again. Uh, Clinics are already open now, but like clinical research studies, and then having the monitors come out and do a virtual visit to get the study started. Hello, Marjorie. How's it going? We're talking patient recruitment.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking, now that we're,
You're
I
mute. You're
mean,
mute. Yeah, go ahead, Monica. You're fine.
so I was thinking that maybe we can create a group on Facebook for a specific condition and start putting videos there. And people look for their condition, like for example, diabetes. And if they see a free group that is putting videos and is just like educating the population about it, then you can start filling up them also with clinical trials, like not just clinical trials, but different type of stuff are related to that condition.
Yeah, the opportunities are
Then
here for people. I mean, there's just tons. When things like this happen, like black swan events, I think we talked about this last week. Everything changes. I mean, things will stay the same still. Research is not going anywhere, but radical changes within will occur. You're already seeing it, right? And how many elements of virtual trials, hybrid trials are going to remain? Remote monitoring. I'm doing remote monitoring. It's very difficult actually getting the sites to be compliant with scanning the documents I need. So I see that as a business person as an opportunity, because it's one thing for sponsors to say, hey, we're doing remote monitoring. It's another thing for sites to actually be compliant and scan the documents. And that's where that disconnect where that disconnect happens is where the opportunities is. And it's very practical. Anybody on this call can do this. Anybody can. What do you think,
yeah.
Marjorie? You're on mute, but hopefully you can talk.
I agree.
You, there's so many. Hey, has anyone gotten an SBA loan? Anybody got an SBA loan yet?
Not at
Anybody got
all.
$1?
Nada.
Still
Yeah,
waiting.
I
Still
got another.
waiting.
I got another email from the SBA that explained yesterday actually that explained, okay, due to all this stuff, it's up to 10,000 for your advance. We're just going to give you 1,000 per employee you put down. And so, but we still haven't gotten that. And then they said, well, that will happen after you submit your entire application, which I already did weeks ago. But yeah,
They
we
said
still
one,
haven't got anything.
they said $1,000 per employee up to $10,000, which is not what
Yeah,
initially.
and that
Um,
could be including yourself too. So like the owners
exactly.
can be employed
But
or independent contractors.
yeah,
Right.
but that's not what the initial documentation was, right?
Well,
So
this is for the advance. So the initial thing said up to $10,000. It did say up to $10,000 even back then. Um, and then now they have the payroll protection program, which Chris has been applying. You've been going crazy with the banks, right? Any
I don't know
luck?
if I'm going crazy, but yes, I've applied to every bank that we have business with.
And what do they say? We're good. We're in good
Same
standing.
thing. I got the same email as you did yesterday from Wells Fargo.
Oh, okay, so look, you do all that, get the same email. I do nothing and get the same email. So we're in
Yeah,
the same boat.
pretty much.
I was reading this morning Forbes, and they put an article about the 9 future predictions for post coronavirus world,
Ah,
and I'm
eight
gonna read it.
after
Nine.
Corona.
So the first one is more contactless interfaces and interactions. So they were saying that before we were getting like a lot of touch kind of technology. Now people are more concerned about touching anything, so everything is going to be more like voice. So type like Alexa, or so it's going to go more towards that. Then this is, oh, well, that's the same one. Then the better monitoring using IoT, and big data.
Ah, Internet of Things. Yeah.
Mhm.
Everything connected. The problem with these things though, like these wearables, I don't have my Fitbit now, but like these things that track your heart rate, eventually they're gonna like do EKGs too. They
Yes.
haven't validated those things. Like they never did studies on those. So how do we know that we're getting the same measurement every time from these wearables? And a couple years ago, the industry's big push was we're gonna give everyone a wearable. All the patients get a wearable, so now they don't need to come to the clinic anymore to get their vitals. But they haven't. I mean, we have to calibrate our equipment in the clinic, you know. And these are not like new technologies. These are proven equipments, right? Calibrated. Well, you're gonna give someone an Apple Watch, and you're gonna give somebody a Fitbit, and then my Nintendo Switch also has like a heart rate. So how do I know which one's good? Like, who's going to come calibrate those at the patient's house?
I'm sure they're calibrated
That's
before
right.
they're shipped in.
Right.
Yeah, but they've never been validated though.
This
Like
is true.
those things have never been validated, and so to build like the entire infrastructure of research, which was risk-based monitor or not risk-based monitoring, but virtual trials, it's one of the big parts of it on these wearables. I mean, that's kind of risky.
Well,
Yeah, for
actually,
him.
China. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say, actually, China is using them to track COVID patients right now.
Yeah, yeah, and then Apple and Google doing a partnership too. I mean, that's really what they're used like good for is tracking where you go.
Yeah, Big
You
Brother.
know, yeah,
And
that
but for emergencies are good too. For example, if you fell or something, the Apple Watch straight away start calling 911 without you doing it. So I mean, for emergencies, it
guess
could be
that's good.
good.
You get a lot of
Yeah.
SAEs in the study.
And then AE enable drug development through artificial intelligence, according to this, right? So it says that it's going to help the drug development, the artificial intelligence. So that's for us. And then telemedicine is going to be something
That one is for
in the
sure.
future. Yeah, more online shopping, increase of reliance on robots, more digital events,
Yeah.
rise on. This actually reminds me of Dan. The racing esports.
Esports is good. You know, that's if anybody wants to invest like that, you can invest in esports. That's gonna be the future. I was watching people playing basketball on NBA 2K20. You know, because there's no sports. But the one I like the most from those, besides esports, because I think that's going to be huge, is the telehealth, obviously, because that's the oldest technology, most practical. It's needed right now. Nobody really needs AI right now, except to crunch the data from coronavirus. Okay, but like in clinical research, what are you going to do with AI? Like, okay, you'll look at the results from the EDC, which a human can do all, but maybe the AI can do it faster and in real time. Okay, that's about it. But you still need to see the patient somehow. You still need patient
Yeah,
compliance. I think telehealth is much more practical and actually helps people complete studies, which they otherwise couldn't right now.
yeah. I
Uh,
think AI also helps with the pre-screening process.
Yeah,
I
we've
mean,
interviewed a few people about that. Like right before
yeah,
this coronavirus thing, got us all at home, we interviewed two people, patient recruitment using AI to recruit patients. But see, here's the problem with that. And we were just had another call with somebody earlier about this. This is why we started this meeting with, we were talking about patient recruitment. Okay, let's say you have this smart AI. It's like God, okay? And it's gonna tell you in a second it'll scan the EMRs and it'll tell you in a second, these are the patients that qualify for your studies. Okay. Let's say it does that. By the way, they can't do that yet. But let's say it can. What are you going to do? Like, okay, does that mean these patients are in the study? No. Somebody has to talk to them. Hey, this is clinical research. You want to join? No. Okay. Hey, do you want to join? No. Okay. I mean, that's how it goes. So, how are these things? I think the investment is not worth the output. Uh, in a lot of these cases. And a lot of these AI companies, especially in clinical research, especially the ones with patient recruitment, are only surviving because of their venture capital funding. They're not actually
yeah.
making money.
Unless they have like a good stretched relationship with the doctor of this patient, and they can flag this patient and tell the doctor, look, this patient is one of
Yeah,
yours, and he or she qualifies. And then, I mean, it has to be something very
of
futuristic.
course.
Like every time, so they will use the patient. I mean, the doctor's EMR to advise the doctor, here, your patient is coming today and this patient qualifies. because you can tell the
Yeah,
doctor like a month ahead, but then if the patient comes, he or she more likely will
they
forget
won't
about
do
it.
it. They won't
So
do it. Yeah,
the only way will be just like keep on telling the doctor, hey, today this patient is coming, and this patient
exactly.
qualifies for this study.
I think more practical over high tech because, like the example you just said, okay, the rate determining step is now the doctor or somebody has to talk to this patient. Okay, it's not any more valuable if you can identify a patient with your algorithm in 5 minutes or in 50 minutes or in 5 seconds. It's not no more valuable and it's going to cost more money to get that result quicker where it does nothing because the rate determining step having the doctor or somebody talk to the patient, right? So I think too much money actually is being put into these things and not enough thought is being put into the human side, which is where we're lacking.
Mm. Yeah, we keep going, and we're all going to be that movie. What's called Wally.
Yeah, remember that?
I actually love that movie.
If this
Oh,
quarantine goes on any longer, we really will be.
yeah, we're all going to be putting on the COVID 50.
Yeah, I mean, this any meeting will be real life, right? What's real life now? Like, how do you define it? It's not outside. I haven't been outside in a while. So what's real life? It's these screens. Adrian's outside. You're enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah, it's nice out here.
What are you doing for patient recruitment? You guys are not screening right now, right? No, but your site?
Screening's on hold for pretty much most of the studies. A lot of them enrollment's closed, but with some of them, well, the one that's actually open, it's recruitment through like the hospital, pretty much. So it's just like doctor to doctor, physician to physician recruitment.
You guys work with
Um,
Hoag, right?
yeah,
Yeah, they're huge.
yeah.
But
So
they're
I mean that's where we get most of our patients. Most of them are from the practice or just the sub-Is. So we have a group of sub-Is that we work with that send us a lot of patients.
so like if you put an AI in your system, wouldn't really help much more than what you're already doing, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And that's pretty much how our site is operating. Because it's a private practice and the doctor still needs to see patients. So they're just doing like telemedicine pretty much.
Oh, they're doing telemedicine. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Good, good.
So I
See, the
think with
ones who
like
can
how you're
integrate
saying
all that.
that, with the wearables and all that, and like you're saying, it's still on the doctor.
Right. Yeah, I
So
mean, the PI, Chris, we have to do a PI oversight SOP for a client today. And like a sponsor was asking, do you know the context of why? I've never heard of a sponsor. I thought PI oversight is the SOP.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I spoke with the client and they really couldn't provide any additional detail. I said, typically the sponsor gives some specifics what they're looking for, and they said no. They just said they needed a SOP on PI oversight.
For the
Interesting.
COVID, specifically because of COVID.
No, they didn't say that. I didn't ask directly that question, but I said, was there any other guidance they gave? And they said no, they just needed PI oversight SOP. So I don't know. I'm not sure if it's due to COVID or not, though you could assume that.
That would make sense. Otherwise, I don't know. I've never heard of that asked before.
Maybe if you had, 50 satellite sites,
Mm,
you
maybe
know,
that's the case, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, if you had 50 satellite sites, that would justify having a PI oversight SOP. But if it's just one clinic, I mean, that's the PI's job. The entire job of the PI is oversight. So
yeah.
how do you make a SOP out of that? Like, you put that into like a few paragraphs?
Here's your SOP. I will follow 1572 and the protocol.
There you go.
What we've done, when I monitored, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
When I monitored, what I looked to see when I looked for PI oversight is I wanted to know when when the PI would be at the site to look at what document. So is the PI only going to look at ECGs? Is the PI going to look at labs? When maybe once a month the PI is going to look at all the source documents. So those are the types of things that I look for the site to tell me. So if you put something like that in a form, that would be the PI oversight SOP.
Yeah,
I think
you have a
we
good
have
point.
something like that. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
something like that that we created. So we like to let the sponsors know, our PI will be here. They review source documents once a month if they're not here all the time, what they're going to be reviewing every visit. So they're not looking at all the source, but they are making sure that they're the ones that are going to sign off on the ECGs. They're going to sign off on the labs, and when are they going to do it? So then that way they know that you didn't wait 6 months for the PI to look at that ECG or that lab. So maybe that's a way to create something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I mean, we're always, chewing at the doctors because they didn't sign off on the ECG or the labs for like a month. But, we used to have them do a note to file that said that they were read within the day that they were done or the report was issued, but the doctor would sit and sign off at the end of the week or the end of the month, and he would give verbal approval for treatment based on the review. But they were seen, right away.
That would make sense. Chris, the thing Monica put in the chat is going to be very helpful for this client.
Right.
It's basically a PI oversight document from Children's National Medical Center. They have a 2-page policy. 1 page is just who's going to approve this and sign it. Oh no, it's more than 2 pages. Never mind.
Yeah, those are
Pretty long. They basically copy and pasted GCP, put it on there.
8 pages.
Yeah. So, hey, I guess we've seen that all with that. But yeah, thanks for the explanation, Marjorie. But yeah, that goes to show like there's opportunities in all the disconnects right now, like telehealth, AI. Okay, like the technology is there, but how do we make it practical? And that's where the industry has always had like a gap. And if you can shorten that gap somehow or connect it, I mean, that's a huge business opportunity. No matter what, like just pick anything. There's a technology, there's a need for it, has to be a need for it. But then there's a gap, like to implement it on a practical level at a day-to-day site level, what's not bringing that up to connect? And that's where like Chris and I are doing this hybrid virtual trial thing. Same thing can be said for patient recruitment. Same thing can be said for these AI algorithms that do pre-screening, or even after the study, like even like at a sponsor level, not at a site level. So those are the things, those are the places my mind goes during these times. Anybody else join that I for Pharma conference today? I'm going to be jumping in and out of that conference today, tomorrow, and I think Thursday. What day is it today? Tuesday? So yeah, I think it goes until Thursday. It might even go until Friday. It's free, but if you want to network with people, you have to pay, guys. That's their business model. So
I
that
think the last day is the 17th, I think.
is that Friday? Well, yeah, that's
I
Friday.
think so.
Okay.
Well, when we get that stimulus check, we'll pay for it.
I don't even know about that. I don't think it's worth it. You can just go on LinkedIn and network with people for free. And
My
pay
daughter
LinkedIn.
actually got her stimulus check yesterday.
Really? Oh, like the
Yep.
actual stimulus, like from the IRS, or like the
Yes.
okay.
She was like, or no, she got it right before Easter, because she says it just said it was going to be active on the 15th.
Hmm.
So
So Dan, in regards to that, and anybody else who's interested, if the IRS doesn't have your bank account information, they're going to mail the check, and they said don't expect those mailed checks until like August.
Yeah, by the time you get the mail check, the post office is gonna close. Like they're gonna go bankrupt. So you won't get it. That's true. They said they're gonna go bankrupt. USPS. Yeah. That'll be
They asked for a bailout on that. They asked for some money. They said they were going to go bankrupt unless they were given some money. So
Right. But they haven't been given yet so far. That's the thing. So
Are they
let's see.
considered too big to fail?
Apparently not.
Yeah, right.
Not with Trump. He said that he's
There's
not
nothing
bailing
too big
them
to fail.
out. Yeah, that'll be interesting. But yeah, no, I wouldn't spend that money on these kind of virtual conferences. I wouldn't pay. I have yet to pay for a virtual conference. I would like to pay for a service. Like if I'm paying someone to do something for my business or for me, I would pay to learn something. But like a conference, I was on for 10 minutes today. You can find these things on YouTube. Like they're talking about basically patient centricity. Again, that disconnect between, oh, how do we make these protocols like more inclusive of patients? Let's get patients involved in writing the protocols. You know, that's not practical. Like how are you actually going to do this? They could talk about it. They can maybe even pay a few influencers, these patient advocates, to go on like a PR campaign for them. But that's not bridging the gap. Like that's not making studies more patient centric. Virtual trials, I think, is making study more patient centric. Sending someone to the patient's home or facilitating the patient to get in the study somehow. That's patient centric. Educating the patient about research, that's patient centric. Nobody wants to do this because it's hard,
Yeah, but that
right?
will actually help for patients that live in rural areas and would like to participate. So it
Yeah,
will extend the possibilities to go everywhere else.
Right.
yeah, that's
I
patient.
yeah.
isn't that the purpose of the IRB? To have a group of people out there in the community to be part of the IRB to look at these protocols? But that doesn't make any sense. And then
Hey,
the
these
bottom
IRBs
line
are
is,
buying sites.
and then the bottom line is when we start sending those budgets back for our study coordinators to go talk to these patients to help with these protocols, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to want to pay for that? So we'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's the disconnect. He or she, mostly she in this group, who can bridge that gap, I mean, you're gonna make a lot of money
There
and
you
change a
go.
lot of lives.
There's another uh real to fame and fortune is having clinical research pickup and drop off services.
Yeah. Yeah, like lab.
Uber trials.
And also the other one will be education, because what happened is some people sometimes at the sponsor, the CRO level, they don't understand how the site works, or the site don't understand how the CRO or the sponsor works. So I think that's a huge disconnection too.
Hmm.
And I think when you educate, I mean, both sides, it will be more connection and better understanding of things.
Yeah, and to Marjorie's point, I mean, it was the IRB was supposed to be this like stakeholder to communicate to patients. They do almost no communicating with patients. They just approve a form. They approve an informed consent, okay, and then they'll approve a protocol. And then they'll approve ads, okay, but they don't actually do any communicating with patients. What they are doing is buying media companies and buying sites, and then they're trying to get into every aspect of research. These
Yep.
IRBs are getting too big to fail. You want to talk about too big to fail as a IRB because you need them, and I mean, just go to like when this lockdown's lifted, go to a conference and go see who the biggest booths are, and that should tell you where
I
a lot of this
agree.
money is going. They're always want to these IRBs. I'm not gonna mention name, but they have like at DIA last year, they rented out like 1/8 of the room. Just like every booth was them, like a different aspect. And then they had this patient advocate signing her books, and so it's all about perception. But at the end of the day, like Marjorie said, The sites is doing all this work. It's not the IRB, it's not the sponsor, it's the sites doing all the legwork.
And I think the sponsors, they don't understand, like I was mentioning, they don't understand how the site works. And then when you're trying to do some advertisement or to do some type of patient engagement, or I mean, they ask you to go back and forward, and I just like, I mean, why they make things so hard for the site when the site is in the best interest of the site is to actually get patients for the study, right? Because that's how we make money. And I don't understand why they make it so difficult. And but they go and make contracts with these organizations that do patient recruitment, that they prove they are not good. And they
Right.
spend so much money in them, and at the end of the day, what you get from them? Nothing. I mean, at least the sites, we don't. And sometimes we get only professional patients.
Yeah. But
True.
I worked on a study with the sponsor, and going forward, if they come out with another protocol and ask me to go on it, I will never work with them again. Had 5 back-to-back data cuts and a database lock between March and November of last year. And then they wanted audits. And when we told them that we could not walk into a site the next day because they wanted data, they were livid with us. Why can't you just go there? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And it's an oncology study in major hospitals. It's a 4 to 8 week time lag between the time you can book and get on site.
Yep.
And they were like, we want the data. You need to go over there tomorrow and get it. I'm like,
No.
wow.
If you did that, they would call security so fast. They wouldn't let
Oh
you
my
in.
God. I mean, this couple of the sites that I have on the study, I mean, they're very gracious, and they've been the coordinators, the regulatory, and the PIs are phenomenal, and they've bent over backwards. But the sponsor is not a US sponsor. And all I can say is every time I think about this sponsor, I just think about that scene in the movie Gung Ho, where they're all sitting there with their ribbons flagellating themselves because they were disgraced. I mean, it's just insane.
Nope.
The disconnect, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I guess that's the theme for this day. Look for the disconnects.
Well, in the
Well,
meantime, we offer training for anybody that wants training in the
Oh yeah,
CRO
the shirt.
level or
Ask me
the
about
we actually
CRC
customize training.
Academy. Keep calm, and I don't know what it says. Keep calm and let the clinical research coordinator handle it.
That's a
Sounds
good
Oh, I
about
shirt.
like
right.
that. Thank you.
This sounds about right. Sounds about right.
That's right. You know, you talked about recruitment too. You know, in some instances, when it's like a specialized protocol, like in oncology, they're all at these key locations. They're not in the communities. They're at major cities, universities, and not all your patients are in downtown Atlanta or Philadelphia or New York. They're from smaller suburbs and outreaching areas that it is quite difficult for a patient that sick to get to those research centers. So the solution is to have more research centers in more reachable areas for those patient populations in that respect.
Yeah.
You know, for you know, the common everyday cold, get them in the community centers, get them in the local doctor's offices, make them PIs. You'll have a much better return on the dollar.
Thank you. That's exactly what Chris and I have been preaching forever is you want more research. Pharma's big thing is, hey, we need more research naive patients because we keep getting all these same patients doing every study. Well, you want more
Professional
research naive
hospitals.
patients. Yeah, you get more research naive physicians to do research. That's how you get the
Right.
research naive patients. I mean, not hard. But to train them, to bring them up to speed, you need people like us. You need people like Sherry. I mean, there's only like a handful of people that are even doing this. You know, and like 3 of the 5 are probably on this meeting.
Well,
I have
even worse
4
than that.
universities.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have 4 universities within 20 miles of me. Do you know the population and the turnover for a good phase 1 study? A bleed and feed, keep them overnight, weekend warrior study. There's a hell of a population for it.
Bleed and feed. I love that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's
PT
patient centric.
Do you remember PT?
I
They
actually,
used to have a phase 1 center in Kansas, and they're all college kids, and they'd all come out with T-shirts that said, "I got paid to study, play pool, do puzzles, watch TV at PPD." And they would pay them big money for phase 1s for the weekends. They do 2 weekends back to back.
Bleed and feed.
I went to
Well, what
some
do you do with them?
university.
You sit them in the chair, you put a catheter in, you bleed them all weekend, and you feed them.
That's right.
Study.
That's about right. Yeah, these phase 1 studies, you know, but we still need them, you know. But to get the research naive, and that's true. That's true though. Those phase 1 healthy volunteer, we need more research naive of those as well. Because those studies especially tend to have the same patients recycle in and out of studies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huge opportunity there too.
Doing phase 1 studies.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else, guys?
Grace, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, the sponsors are so ridiculous that I don't know if they're aware of this or not, right? The research naive physicians to get research naive patients, that they don't allow research naive physicians to participate in research, right?
Well,
It's true.
a guy whose name, I think his last name was Sherwood. He wrote an article in like the DIA magazine probably 20 years ago. And he did an analysis of data at the very seasoned schooled research centers, the MD Andersons, the Memorial Sloan Ketterings, and new naive startup docs. And when you looked at the data integrity and the completeness of the data versus the new naive doc in the box shop and the big boys, the data from the naive research centers was far better than the big hospitals.
I'm sure I believe that.
Yeah, me too.
But
yes, Marjorie, yes, right. And it is because they're more eager to please the client to get a repeat business. And I don't know if any of you worked in oncology, but let me tell you something. MD Anderson is off my no thank you, please plate. I will not go back there. The passive aggressiveness and the stress to go there after 10 years of working on and off at that place, it's not worth it.
You're not the first one I've heard say that about that place.
Oh my God.
Which place is it?
MD Anderson. You walk the Green Mile and they put you in the basement.
Wow.
And there is no cell phone service down there. And there's only one way you can call them, and that's the phone on the wall. And they know that extension. You think they're picking it up when they see it?
Exactly. So AMCs are so different than regular, like, private sites. I mean, it's like night and day. I'm glad I'm monitoring AMC now. They're actually one of the good ones, but yeah, it's still a huge difference. We've got chats. We would not do that at UAB. UAB?
University.
Alabama, Birmingham?
Yeah.
I would like to monitor there. Never been to Alabama. Never been.
Yeah, me too.
Wonderful sites in Alabama. Great
What's
sites
that?
in
I've been at
Alabama. Great
UAB.
work happening in Alabama.
I
Yeah.
wanna go.
I've worked at some of their satellite sites and stuff that work with UAB, but I haven't been on UAB proper.
Yeah, some academic centers are actually pretty good. But yeah, you're not the first person to tell that I've heard that about that place. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's I have a girlfriend who lives in Galveston. She goes to MD, and I said she should get sainthood. She goes there every week.
Wow.
That bad, huh? She should be a saint.
She should. It's horrible. I mean, just the commute alone is deadly.
Wow.
Maybe you guys can create a soft skills program.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? But then
For
they would have to join.
monitors, for site, for universities to be able to communicate with their monitors, have study coordinators communicate with the sponsors.
Gosh.
I think
Well, you know,
With
it's
the
funny.
patients.
You were talking about PI oversight, and at MD Anderson, I was on a study for 5 years, had made multiple attempts to see the PI, was on another study, and my girlfriend says, "Hey, there's your PI," and I said, "That's not my PI. Doesn't look anything like her. It was a guy." She goes, "No, that was your old study." I said, "Well, God forbid, 5 years later, it's the first time I've seen the man."
That's why you need a PI oversight SOP.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
I've
we're
done
not
the
the
same
ones who
thing.
need it.
I've done the same thing where I worked on a phase 1 and I never saw the PI the entire time. The last day that I was closing out the site, he showed up to sign off on my queries. He was nasty when he responded, when I needed answers. You know, and all I could do is just take pictures of the things that he wrote out. I mean, that's stuff that I always, whenever I've mentored other monitors, I've told them this is what you don't want your PI to do. So yeah, it was always, you know, every time that I would go to the site, there was always a different answer of when the PI was available, what he was signing, when he was signing it. So it does make a difference to have that PI oversight. I mean, that PI oversight SOP. It's not only just for take care of yourself to protect yourself with the sponsors, but it's also for those naive PIs that you're going to be bringing in, to let them know what their responsibilities are. So
Right.
this is
The
what I
naive
expect from
ones.
you. Exactly.
But
This is what I expect from you, and you're going to get a great PI that way, because at
Right.
least you're saying this is the SOP for our site. This is your responsibility as a PI, and we need to show your oversight.
Right.
And so it's important to communicate that even with the PIs themselves.
Those are another
Well,
ones that need the soft skills class.
Well, there
I mean,
are,
don't
and
get me started.
it's the seasoned, you know, big names, the KOLs at these major universities. In some instances, they're the ones that need the lessons. You know, go back and get a refresher course, sort of like requiring physicians now to come out graduated with bedside manner courses, monitoring manners.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm not calling you because I just want to see your face and ask you how your children are. I got a problem. You got an SAE you haven't reported, and you're arguing, your site's arguing with me it's not an SAE.
And you get that usually from the bigger institutions.
Yeah.
Well,
I another guy, wasn't MD Anderson, was another study site, but big university, football university. And he refused to see me. And I had 2 patients that went down. I had one that had an amputation, and I had one who was 25 years old on a vent, and he still had her on study and didn't report either SAE. And then his coordinator sat there and argued with me that the amputation was a scheduled surgery. And I said, show me where it says that before he signed that ICF, he was having his leg amputated on this day, and brought me a note that said, if his peripheral vascular disease deteriorates, we will have to consider other options. Okay, well, it deteriorated and you yanked the guy's leg off. I think that's an SAE.
it's an SAE.
Yeah, might be. Here's your
Oh, I think
sign.
Dan got disconnected.
Huh?
You're still on. There is a
Okay.
disconnect. You are right. There is a disconnect. We need a soft skills university. Somebody, let's make one. You know, we
Not
have
me.
not me either. Me and Chris have too much going on.
Monica,
I have no
That's all
filter. I
Monica.
have no PC filter
No.
anymore.
No, I always emphasize to the students in the CRC Academy about that, the importance of having good communication with the CRC, with the PI, with the patients, with everybody, because at the end of the day, I mean, the one that is kind of in the middle is the clinical research coordinator. Because if the clinical research coordinator doesn't have good communication with everybody, then things don't really work. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the
absolutely.
CRCs are the stars of any site.
Oh, hands down. Hands down.
many times.
Yeah.
Certain
I
times.
mean, and that relationship is the most important one to foster because they will get you through any site, you know, schematics and get you to what you have to do. And God bless some of them for having to deal with it, you know.
That's right. So
Yeah. So imagine some doctors, if the doctors are sometimes, the PIs are sometimes like that with the CRAs, imagine how they are sometimes with the CRCs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the CRC has to deal with this PI like on daily basis, basically.
Yeah,
And
I mean, there's some, and don't get me wrong, there's some really good PIs out there. Like,
Yeah,
I
agree.
mean, John Powderly at North Carolina Biooncology Clinic, he is the most humble man you will ever meet. I would
everybody
go
go
there.
add him on LinkedIn right now. Who is
He
he?
looks like Doogie Howser.
Go add
Oh.
Doogie Howser
He does. He
on
looks like
LinkedIn.
he's 12.